Hello everyone, welcome back to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, dated 3rd March 2025. Today again we will be discussing some important topics that has appeared in today's The Hindu and The Indian Express newspapers which are very relevant for your examination. In our first topic, we'll look into the status of a flagship scheme of Government of India, that is Production Linked Incentive Scheme. After that, in our second topic, we will look into various dimensions of care economy in India. Then in our simplified section, we will take up 5 articles and we will try to explain them in simplest language possible to enrich your understanding of the newspapers. Additionally, we have also incorporated some prelims pointers which is going to be very crucial for your upcoming prelims 2025 examination. So have a look on them also and stay tuned. So our first topic is the Production Linked Incentive Scheme. The context of this topic is that this scheme, which was launched in the month of March-April 2020, is going to complete its 5 years in this month of March-April 2025 itself. And that is the reason Government of India is thinking to launch the PLI 2.0 with some more changes in this scheme. For example, one such change which Government of India is thinking is that the metrics which is being used to give incentives to various companies as of now is the incremental sales of the company. And government is thinking to incorporate some other metrics or parameters. For example, the domestic value addition as well as the incremental exports of the companies can be such metrics or parameters based on which government may give incentives to these companies. For example, if there is a company who is importing some of the raw materials from any foreign country and now they are processing that raw materials, they are doing value addition in those raw materials, and after finishing that product, they are exporting that finished good to some other foreign country. So what is the amount of value addition they have done in our domestic territory? Because whenever a company is doing the value addition, that is creating jobs in the country. So government can incorporate this domestic value addition as one of the metrics to give support or incentives to the companies. And this particular topic, production linked incentive, pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, government policies and interventions, as well as syllabus of your GS paper 3, growth and development. So this scheme, which was launched on the backdrop of COVID-19, in the initial months of the COVID-19 itself, there was huge supply chain disruptions that happened due to the COVID-19 restrictions that came in place. And especially some of the countries like China, which came with its zero COVID policy, which incorporated stringent quarantine measures, stringent lockdowns, etc. That has impacted the movement of goods and services also. And in this case, most of our industries, some of our industries who were highly dependent on the raw materials from these countries like China, they were heavily impacted because of the supply chain disruptions, because of the lack of availability of these raw materials which they were taking from China. And that is the reason to support the domestic manufacturing and realize the vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat. This scheme was launched by the government. And it, as of now, it covers 14 sectors with an outlay of 1.97 lakh crore. What are those sectors? For example, sectors like electronic or technology products, automobile and auto components, pharmaceutical drugs, mobile manufacturing and specified electronic components, food products as well as the food processing industry, textile products with the manufacturing segments as well as the technical textiles, having some specific characteristics or specific features like they have high tensile strengths, then the high efficiency solar photovoltaic modules, the white goods like AC, refrigerator, etc., specialty steel, telecom, networking products, manufacturing of medical devices, as well as the advanced chemistry cell battery. These are some of the sectors where the PLI scheme is majorly focusing. And it will give support or incentive to the companies doing the domestic manufacturing, and it is also have this thought in the mind to do the import substitution. As of now, there are some products which we are importing and we are highly dependent on imports of these products. For example, in the case of drugs itself. So what Government of India is thinking that if we will support some of our industries, if they will start the domestic manufacturing with the technology upgradation, with the improvement in the efficiency and productivity of these companies, these import dependence will reduce. And tomorrow, if another supply chain disruption may come with any of the geopolitical situations like what we witnessed in the case of Russia-Ukraine war, what what we witnessed in the case of Israel-Hamas situation. So our domestic manufacturing doesn't get much impacted due to the supply chain disruptions which are happening due to various geopolitical reasons. And that is the reason this high import substitution is also one of the objective of this scheme. And this scheme is, the incentives under the scheme are based on the incremental sales, and this is generally looked over a base year. Let's suppose this is a particular base year 2020, and the sale of any one particular company which is involved in any of these sectors was 100 rupees, and now this, let's suppose this 2020 is the base year, and in next year 2020 their sales increased to, let's suppose, 200 rupees. Now we have witnessed a incremental sale of 100 rupees from 2020 to 2021. Now all the industries in all the sectors are not going to get same amount of incentives. It differs from various sector to sector. For example, it is as low as 1% for electronics and technology product, and it is as high as 20% for critical key starting drugs and certain drug intermediaries. Key starting drug materials are the basic raw materials which are generally used in the production of any of the drugs. For example, for aspirin, which is used as a major painkiller, the acetic acid is one of the key starting material or the raw material with the help of which we are manufacturing the aspirin. And then we have the active pharmaceutical ingredients which creates or gives the therapeutic effect. For example, ibuprofen, which is also again being used in the addressing the pains, etc. That is, the ibuprofen is the API, and China is one of the highest exporter of the API, and that is the reason when COVID-19 came, China's implemented zero COVID policy, and supply chain disruptions happened, or supply chain disruptions happened. It is the case, or during that time itself, all the accessibility of these APIs got impacted, and it has heavily impacted the various industries which are based in the pharmaceuticals. So what is the significance of this scheme? How it has fared in last 5 years? First, it has helped in boosting the domestic manufacturing, which is also visible from data of the mobile manufacturing, which says that there is 50% growth in production from 1.9 lakh crore in financial year 20 to 2.9 lakh crore in financial year 2020 as per the data from Ministry of Electronics and Technology. And some of the big names like Apple, Xiaomi, Samsung were some of the big beneficiaries of this particular scheme in the mobile manufacturing in domestic territory of India. Also, it has led to job creation, that as per the data from government, as of August 2024, 9.5 lakh jobs were created directly or indirectly with the help of this particular PLI scheme. It has also helped in attracting the foreign direct investment, that almost 1.5 lakh crore in foreign investment since its launch has came in India across various sectors, across various companies, as per the data from Niti Aayog. Also, it has provided support for local supply chains, reducing their dependence on the foreign goods with the help of the domestic Atmanirbharta that came with the help of the PLI scheme, or the Atmanirbhar Bharat, which was the vision, and with the help of that vision this scheme was launched. And it has also helped in increasing the exports. More than 4 lakh crore worth of exports has been done, and that one of the major reason for the help or the incentives that were coming from the government. Also, if you look into the investment, that almost 1.46 lakh crore came as in the investment across various sectors, and it has also led to 12.50 lakh crore in production value of various goods under this scheme. Also, some data that we got from the ITI that was filed by the Indian Express, it said that till June 2024, the percentage of achievements of targets of the job creation across the 14 sector, it said that some of the sectors like mobile phones manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, food processing, these are some of the sectors which has done fairly well. But some of the sectors like textiles, solar, auto and auto components couldn't achieve its target related to the job creation. And despite the government support, there are various other issues which are specific to various industries, and that is the reason these industries couldn't do fairly well as compared to these industries which has done very good. And some of the industries and the sectors like pharmaceuticals has achieved their targets beyond the expectation, right? So what are the various challenges which are impeding the success of the scheme? The first important is the economic headwinds which the economy faced after the COVID-19. After the COVID-19, various other supply chain disruptions due to the various other geopolitical issues has emanated. For example, Russia-Ukraine war happened. For example, the Israel-Hamas war situation started. And it has led to high inflation in the economy, and consistently we have witnessed inflation of 4-5%, and for some months the food inflation was around 10%. When the people have the limited money and the inflation in the economy is very high, then we will not be witnessing that demand by the people for the various goods and services. When people will not be demanding goods and services, then how we can witness that incremental sales by the various companies? And this decrease in the demand because of lack of purchasing power, that is also the softening of the consumption by the people, is also witnessing. We are also witnessing that with the help of the quarterly data that we got for various companies, which has shown a lower revenue, lower profits for various companies. So these economic headwinds like the supply chain disruptions, geopolitical issues, the trade wars that are going on with regard to the change in the US president, etc. All this has impacted the success of this scheme. Why? Because this scheme is not addressing the issues of the demand side, which are much impacted by various other macroeconomic variables like inflation in the economy, the consumption pattern in the economy. So another important issue is that this scheme is only addressing the supply side issue and it is not addressing the demand side issues. That is how well the people are demanding various goods and services. For example, the real wage growth of the people was very abysmal. What does real wage growth means? That is nominal wage growth minus the inflation in the economy. If let's suppose at any year the income of the person was 100 rupees and in last 1 year the inflation in the economy was 10%, means the value of the product or the cost of product which he or she was able to buy at 100 rupees has now become 110 rupees. But there has been only 5% increase in the wage of the person and now the wage is only 105 rupees, means the person will not be able to buy that particular product in the same quantity at what he was buying actually in the earlier phase. So here this high inflation is decreasing the demand, is decreasing the consumption, which will also impact the incremental sales of the company. And obviously when they will not witness that incremental sales because of lack of demand from various people, various households, obviously they will not be able to get that incentives. The companies will not be able to get incentives. So this economic headwinds as well as the demand side issues were the major challenges in the success of this scheme. Apart from that, the limited coverage of the sectors, that only few sectors, the 14 key sectors are actually the sectors which are gaining the major benefits from the scheme. Still there are a lot of sectors which are outside the benefit of the scheme. Also, the delay in the disbursement of the incentives. For example, some of the big names like Foxconn, which are majorly involved in the semiconductor manufacturing and the processing, they have reported that there has been delay in the disbursement in the incentives of the government of India itself. Also, the limited focus on the innovation and the technology, that we are only focusing on the incremental sales. We are not focusing on the research and development. We are not focusing on the improvement in the skills of the people. And that is again one of the major issue. And then the inadequate infrastructure support. For example, the transportation cost is still very high. The lack of proper incentive or lack of proper logistic infrastructure. When a particular company who is investing to improve their efficiency, they have produced any of the product which they were earlier producing in 4 days, now they are producing that in 2 or 3 days. But again, if the road transportation is not very good, roads are very poor, or railway infrastructure is not such robust, and the time is going to be taken at this as the same amount which the earlier particular company was facing for sending one product from one place to another place. For example, earlier the production time was 4 days, transportation time was 5 days. Company, by investing in the better technologies, had reduced the time of production to 2 days, 3 days. But again, the time that they are spending or is same, that is 5 days for transporting one goods or from one place to another place. So that is in this way that company will not be incentivized to further invest in the better technologies for increasing their efficiency, because they are not benefiting with the help with the poor infrastructure that we have. And that is also visible from the India's rank in the logistics performance index, which was 38 in year 2020. Three, that still there is lot of scope of improvement in India, by India towards the improving their logistics infrastructure, and in this regard itself the government has launched the national logistics policy to address the issue. Also, the various bureaucratic hurdles and complex approval process that has further diminished the efficiency of our scheme, which has been also highlighted by a 2021 study by IIM Ahmedabad. Also, if you look into the sector wise PLI target and execution, that the pharmaceutical drugs, large scale electronics manufacturing are some of the sectors which has almost achieved their targets. Telecom, bulk drugs are some of the sectors which have overachieved their target. They have moved beyond their targets, but still there are some sectors like textile sectors which we have talked. Then there are advanced chemical cell battery sector who couldn't do fairly well as compared to the other sectors. So there is also a inter-sector disparity with regard to the target execution. So what should be done? How we can address this issue? First, there is need for expanding the sectoral coverage. We can identify some of the sectors which are more job creating, which can also which are the sectors from where we can see a better demand of our goods and services from other parts of the world. We can incorporate some other sectors while expanding the particular scheme in the upcoming time. Also, there is need for simplifying the approval process, that is the various clearances etc. that a particular company needs. Also, the various background checks that are done with regard to the incremental sales invoices that a particular company is submitting to the government. There can be more technological integration to simplify that process, to reduce that process time, so that particular company can get that incentives in due time, in the limited time, and that they can invest in further improving their production capacity, in further improving their efficiency and productivity of the company. Also, there is need for focusing on the research and development and innovation, because as of now, if a particular company wants to reduce the cost of production, they will have to invest in the research and development. As a percentage of GDP, our research and development is still around 0.6 to 0.7% as percentage of GDP, as highlighted by economic survey also. So the private sector will have to take some lead. They will have to further invest the incentives that they are getting, or some part of incentives that they are getting from the government, in the research and development sector, and that will help in improving our innovation architecture, improving our research and development infrastructure, and that will further bring down the cost of production, that will further increase the job creation scenario. Also, there is need for strengthening the infrastructure support. There is need for improving the infrastructure so that a seamless transportation of the various goods and services can be done. For example, India has launched the Bharatmala project for the expansion of highways. We have also focusing on the port-led development, that is to reduce the turnaround time. All these measures which has been taken by the government will help in further simplifying the process for the various companies which are taking the benefits of PLIs, and that will further reduce the cost of the production for these companies. Also, there is need for focusing on skilling and human capital development, and for this government has launched the Pradhan Mantri Kausal Vikas Yojana 4.0. This is one such scheme where the government is focusing on the industry 4.0 technologies like machine learning, technologies like artificial intelligence, technologies like Internet of Things, which are needed by the industries of 21st century and we are focusing on skilling our demography with these kind of skills, so that there can be a better demand supply of the skills. That is what is the skills which are needed by the industries, that can be supplied by our demography, right? Also, the human capital development is also, again, government is focusing that proper support can be given to these employees so that they can get better employment, like social security benefits are being provided, and that is the reason the government has further simplified the various labor codes in labor laws into 4 codes. Apart from that, various other schemes where government is focusing on creating awareness, like zero defect scheme, as that these companies can follow various sanitary and phytosanitary measures, and that can make our products competitive at global level. Because what we have witnessed in last few years, that there has been various products which we were exporting to various countries, they were sent back because of the lack of quality. What we witnessed in the case of MDH Everest masalas, because there was high content of ethylene oxide in those masalas or spices beyond permissible limit. So when these products which are going to various export destinations like Singapore, European Union, which have sent them back, it is creating a bad image and our products will not remain that competitive and the companies will not be able to get that incremental sales. So again, there is need for increasing that awareness, focusing on improving the sanitary and the phytosanitary measures architecture, that our products remain competitive and majority of the companies in these 14 sectors can get benefits of the incremental sales. This is one mains practice question that you can write from this topic. So our second topic is the centering care in India's economic policy. Context is that a write-up has appeared focusing on various aspects of care economy, and this particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2 issues related to women and syllabus of your GS paper 3 government budgeting. So the context is that the Union Budget 2025 has allocated 4,49,028 rupees as the gender budget itself, which is a 37.3% increase from financial year 2024. And one of the major reason why we witnessed such an increase in the gender budget is because of the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana has been incorporated in the part A of the scheme, and it constitutes almost 24% of the gender budget of Union Budget 2025 itself. What does it mean? That see, to calculate the distribution of the gender budget, we categorize various schemes under the three subheads, that is Part A, Part B and Part C. Part A are some of the schemes where 100% women specific schemes are there. For example, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Gramin. This has been kept under the Part A of the scheme. Why? Because whatever the houses that are being built in the rural areas, they are in the name of the female head or the woman of the particular family. Then the Manrega is another scheme where women is another major beneficiaries. So that has been again kept under the Part A. The Part B are the schemes where 30 to 99% of allocation are for women. Then the Part C are the schemes where below 30% allocations for women. Now this Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana has been transferred to Part A. Why? Because ration cards as per the National Food Security Act are being issued in the name of the female head. And there was also one of the question that was asked from this particular topic in the prelims examination also. So that is the reason now we are witnessing this increase in the gender budget figures. But it does not reflect the substantial investment in the care infrastructure that is needed. For example, what is the care economy? What is the difference between care economy and the monetized economy? Care economy is the unpaid or the underpaid work which women are doing, for which they are not getting any substantial compensation. For example, you can relate it with the movie Mrs. That whatever the work that she is doing at home, whether it is cooking, whether it is cleaning, whether it is dishwashing, any of the female members are not getting any separate payments for that. And if they will not be doing this work, they can go to some employment, they can go to some jobs, and they can utilize this time that they are spending here for getting some wages or the compensation for the work that they will be doing. That is the monetized economy. That is the income or the compensation that people are getting for doing various works, for giving various services, right? For example, in this particular movie, that is The Cut Hell, the female lead, the same lead, that is Sanya Malhotra, she was one of the police officers, and obviously you can say that this is part of the monetized economy because she is getting a proper salary for the services of the police officer that she is giving. So what we are witnessing, that in the budget itself there is no separate payment or the allocation for improvement in the infrastructure. That is there. Don't you think that if there is an infrastructure, for example dishwashers can be provided to the various female, then the time that they are spending on the cleaning or the dishwashing, that can be reduced. So and it is not only limited to the kitchens. There are various other works where unpaid work where the women are involved. For example, there are still lot of water stressed districts where women has to travel a lot of distance to even get some water, fetch some water. So again, if we are investing in these infrastructure with the help of further improvements in the schemes like Jal Jeevan Mission, This accessibility can be improved, and the time these women are spending on getting that water, fetching that water, can be reduced. So here, if we have invested further in the infrastructure, that can have improved the particular case of the women's with regard to the spending that they are doing in providing the various care work like elderly care, household care, the child care that they are doing at homes. So gender budgeting is a process of incorporating a gender perspective at all stages of policy making, starting from legislation to finally the impact assessment, that how better impact it has created in the lives of the women. It doesn't mean a separate budget for women and men. Rather, there will be a same budget, but we will incorporate the specific and the special needs of the women in the same budget itself, and we'll try to improve their lives with regard to the special needs that they have. And it mainly tries to determine the corrective actions that are needed in the government policies, plans, programs, schemes and budget to meet the needs of the women and girls as well as the men's and boys. So what are the issues due to the absence of the critical investment in the care infrastructure? The first is the low workforce participation, which has been also highlighted by the data that global average, that is around 17.8% of time is being spent on the unpaid care and domestic work. In India, the Indian women are spending at least 40% of more of their time for this unpaid care and domestic worker, and which is much higher than the South Africa and China. That is, Indian women are spending 40% more of their time as compared to South Africa and China for unpaid care and the domestic works. Also, if you look into this data from the CII and Ministry of Women Child Development as well as various other organizations, that is the national gender gap in time spent on unpaid work. That is, the female are spending at least 5.6 hours on a daily basis, whereas men are only spending on 30 minutes. And this gender gap is more pronounced among the urban women than the rural women. In rural areas, it is 8.2x, means the women are spending almost 8 times more time in the unpaid care and domestic work as compared to men, whereas in the urban areas it is 9.6x. That is, the condition is more abysmal in the urban areas. Also, this exaggerate the gender inequality. That is, that when the men and women are not taking the equal burden of the domestic works, it is further leading to stereotyping of the gender discrimination. 53% of Indian women remain outside the labor force due to the care responsibilities that they have in the homes, and it is compared to just 1.1% of men as per the International Labour Organization. And from this movie Mrs. also you can see that she had lot of work to do at home itself, and that is the reason she was not getting time to go outside and get a proper work. Also, it leads to increased time poverty for women. What is poverty? That is lack of basic resources. Here, time poverty means women do not have time. They have lack of time. Why? Because women in India spend on an average of 352 minutes per day on unpaid domestic and care work compared to 51 minutes for the men, which has been highlighted by Time Use Survey 2019. And it is also leading to loss of GDP and the economic growth. As per the NSO Time Use Survey, 15 to 17% of GDP we are losing due to the unpaid work that women are doing at their home itself. Also, another thing that is very shocking is that female with higher educational qualification spend higher amount of time on the unpaid care work. Apart from that, another issues are that negative impact on economic growth that we are witnessing, that it is leading to 15 to 17% of GDP loss. Apart from that, the Economic Survey 23-24 has given a further dimension to the data. It says that a 2% GDP investment in care infrastructure could generate 11 million jobs and ease the care burden. For example, if there can be some infrastructure improvement, then that can be done for improving the assisted technologies. That is, let's suppose there is a old age people or elder member in the family who could not go to washroom or who could not go to the toilets without anyone's support. If we are investing in that infrastructure, like automatic wheelchairs, electronic wheelchairs, with the help of which that person doesn't need the help of any female member to go to the washroom or to go to the bathroom. With the help of those kind of technologies, the lives of these people, elderly people, can be improved, and these females who are actually engaged in these elderly care, they can get some extra time, and that they can spend on some productive use in the monetized economy. It is not only limited to these kind of infrastructure. For example, at our homes, with the help of better technologies like dishwashing, cooking, or cleaning, for example, vacuum cleaners could be incorporated for cleaning homes itself. That can further save a lot of times of the men or female member who may be taking the responsibility of cleaning the homes. Also, the impact of climate change, it is further impacting the situation of the women. For example, women spend nearly 5 hours daily collecting water compared to 1.5 hours for women, and this condition is very abysmal in some of the water stressed districts. And water related unpaid labor in India projected to reach to almost $1.4 billion by 2050 under a high emission scenario. That carbon emission, if we will increase, and our global temperature will not remain below the 1.5 degree Celsius as compared to the industrial level. Obviously, it will further create the situation much worse conditions for the droughts, etc. The water table will further go down, and the accessibility of water will be a bigger issue. So the impact of climate change may lead to further issues for the women. So what are the measures to address this care burden? First of all, there is need for recognizing the full spectrum of unpaid care and domestic work, and government is needed to do a direct public investment equivalent to 2% of GDP, which can create 11 million jobs, and it can ease the care burden from the female unpaid workers. Also, there is need for investment in the time saving technologies. For example, there can be expanded access to affordable care, that whatever the care that are being earlier given by the females, if we can incorporate some better technologies, that can actually help us in saving the time, and that time can be utilized by women for productive work. Also, but in the improvement of the infrastructure, for example, in the water accessibility infrastructure, if we are improving, that is also one of the major highlight or area of government with the help of Jal Jeevan Mission. So if we are improving the water infrastructure, accessibility of water infrastructure, that will further save the time of the women, and they can utilize that for the productive work. Also, there is need for expanding the care infrastructure. For example, expanding the child care center, elder care supports, etc. For example, creche facilities can be set up at various employment places, because why a majority of the women are not being able to participate in the employment is because of the fact that they are already engaged in various other services that the society thinks that they should be providing. That is the child care. If a newborn child is born, then there are various needs that can be fulfilled by the woman itself. But if there are creche facilities available at the place of work, the woman will be assured that their child is safe, and she can visit the creche at a regular interval and take care of their child along with the work itself. So there is need for expanding the care infrastructure. Also, there is need for redistributing the care work, and for that there is need for dismantling the gender stereotypes, that cleaning, cooking is not only the work of the female members only. Male member have equal responsibility for that. And there is need for ensuring that from home to the state and within households, this stereotyping needs to be dismantled, that only the female member will not make the foods. It is the male members. It is the male members who also needs to take the responsibility of the household care. Also, there is need for representation in the decision making, in the legislation process, in the budget making process, because when we will involve these movements, it will help us in improving or creating inclusive policies for the women. Apart from that, there can be some other pillars which can be incorporated for improving the care economy. For example, leaves policies, especially for example the period leaves can be incorporated. Some of the industries have taken this as an example. For example, in the institute where I am working, there is provision of leave, period leaves, menstrual leaves for the women. Similarly, various other startups like Zomato, etc. have also came with these kind of policies. Also, there can be subsidies for the care services that can be provided by the government to further improve the infrastructure in these cases. Also, there is need for investment in the care infrastructure that we have talked, and skill training for the care workers like nurses, etc. that can help in reducing the burden of the females who are involved in these works, and some of the women can get jobs in these care sector activities. Also, there is need for institutional mechanism for quality assurance of these care services, so that the people who are dependent on these care services doesn't get impacted. A mains practice question is this that you people can write from this topic. So our first topic in the simplified section is what is blue ghost, and this particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 3 space technology, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu page number 14. So a US based company named Firefly Aerospace have successfully landed its spacecraft on moon on Sunday, and they are the second being a private mission to achieve this particular milestone, and first to do so upright. Means they have landed their spacecraft upright and they are first to do so. This particular name of the mission was Blue Ghost, and this whole mission, nicknamed as Ghost Riders in the Sky, is the mission which is a part of NASA industry partnership aimed at reducing the cost and supporting the Artemis mission of the NASA, which is a program designed to return astronauts to moon. Also, this particular Ghost Rider, the Golden Lander, it has about a size of hippopotamus, and it was launched on January 15 with the help of SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. And why landing upright is a difficult feat? Because of the fact that you can recall the Chandrayaan 2 when it was landing and it crash landed. It was landing normally and still it couldn't land properly. So landing upright is one of the major feats which has been achieved by the Firefly Aerospace. Also, the Blue Ghost carries 10 instruments including a lunar soil analyzer, a radiation tolerant computer, and an experiment testing the feasibility of using the existing global satellite navigation system to navigate the moon. These are some of the instruments that are on board the Blue Ghost. What is this Artemis mission which we are talking? So this Artemis 1, which was launched in 2022, is the first uncrewed test flight of integrated space launch system rocket and its Orion crew capsule. Means with the help of this, they will be bringing back they will first go with the astronauts, and then they will bring back the astronauts to the Earth itself. The Artemis 2, which was launched in 2024, is the first crewed flight around the moon, and the Artemis 3rd, that will be launched around 25-26, will be first crewed flight to land on the moon surface. And this is the Artemis 2 mission's timeline, that the launch will lift off from pad 39B at Kennedy Space Station, then the Orion separation, that the capsule will separate, plus the manual handling of the quality assessment for up to 2 hours, and then the lunar flyby will happen, that is, it will move around the orbits. So this Artemis mission, if it is being asked in the prelims examination, that is the crewed moon mission from the NASA. Okay, majorly the Artemis 3rd will be the crewed mission. And these are some of the other missions which are related to the moon itself. For example, the Chang'e 5, Chandrayaan 2, Bereshit, which is from the Israel, then Chang'e 4. These are some of the moon missions that you can keep in mind. You can read from this particular 2 pictures. Next topic is making sense of GDP data. This is related to your GS paper 3 growth and development, and this has appeared in today's The Indian Express page number 11. So what happened, or what is GDP? It is the total market value of all the goods and services that are produced in the domestic territory during a financial year. And there are various ways with the help of which we are calculating the GDP. One is the income method, where we are adding all the income which is generated by the 4 factors of production, that is land, labor, capital and entrepreneurship. For land we get rent, for labor we get wages, for entrepreneurship we are deriving the profits, and for capital we give the interest payment. So And for the GDP growth rate, we are actually calculating the real GDP growth rate, or we are seeing the real GDP growth rate. That is the GDP that is calculated for the constant price, which is chosen by a base year, which is adjusted for inflation. And time and again, we are coming with the data related to the GDP. And for every year, first advance estimates are released in January for the relevant financial year, for example, for financial year 2025 or 24. Then the second advance estimates are released in the February of that year. Then the provisional estimates, which includes the data from quarter 4 or January to March quarter, in May. And then the final revised estimates in February a year later, and the final estimates in February 2 years later. Means the final estimates for this financial year will get after 2 years. Why this is happening? Because whatever the data we are getting from the various companies, or what is the data they are reporting on the MCA 121 database, we are adjusting all that data. So for example, the GDP forecast for the full year, these are called as the second advance estimates and are essentially a forecast of India's GDP by the time of the financial year ends on March 31. This is the second advance estimate that will be there. Then the second advance estimates are preceded by the first advance estimates that will be released by January, which we have talked. So the first advance estimate has predicted the GDP growth rate at 6.4% at this point of time. And in other words, India's GDP was expected to be 6.4% higher than the previous year. Also, for the preceding year, we have the revised estimates and the final estimates. These are called as the first revised estimates of financial year 24 and the financial estimates of financial year 23. And as far as the quarterly GDP data is concerned, India's GDP grew at 6.2% over the same quarter last year, and as per the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, it revised the quarter 2 GDP growth rate from 5.4%, which was one of the lowest that we have seen in past few quarters, to 5.6%. Also, the weaker GDP data point to a weaker tax collection. Why? Because the demand and the consumption is very weak. When the demand is weak, when the consumption pattern is weak, obviously when people are not demanding goods and services, that will also impact the tax collection of the government, and that will also impact the financial, that is revenue and the profits of the government, profits of the companies. And that is the reason that this poor financials of these companies, that majority of the FIIs are selling from Indian markets and they are going outside. One of the reason for that selling that we are witnessing from the FIIs is the high long-term capital gain tax that government has imposed. That is one of the reason. But another reason is the weakening financials of these companies. That is the reason that FIIs are selling. And this consumption demand, that is the spent money that is spent by the households as an individual capacity for everyday groceries and everything, that is the consumption demand, that has also softened, but still it is one of the major drivers for our economic growth. And in fact, in the current financial year, it is the private consumer demand which is pulling up the GDP growth rate far more than the other engines. Let's suppose this is our economy, then there are 4 engines which are driving this economy. What are those 4 engines? One is the household consumption expenditure, second is the private investment, third is the government spending, and fourth is the net of export. That in the government expenditure, whatever the spending government is doing on giving salaries to the people, or whatever the investment that has been done by the government, apart from the net of exports, that is export minus import. So these are the 4 engines which are driving our economy, and as of now the consumption demand is one of the major engine which are driving our economy. And what are the main takeaways we can see from the latest data? First of all, that until last March, India's economy was doing much better than the previously understood with the revised data that we got. Also, the slump in the quarter 2 growth data that we have seen in the current financial year is sharper than the previously imagined. Also, the deceleration, that is rate of growth, has slowed down. is 9.2% to 6.5%. Also, the sharp revision of data undermines both the reading of the Indian economy as well as the credibility of the official statements. That after every estimate, if you are revising your growth rate data, that puts a question mark on the credibility of the data that are coming from the institutions. Also, these are some of the basic things about the methods with the help of which GDP is calculated that you can read. For example, in the output approach, we are adding all the value added which happened at each stage of production for all the economic activities for all the sectors. Then in the income approach, we are adding all the income generated by the four factors of production. Then in the expenditure method, we have added all the expenditure which has been done by the four components, that is the consumption expenditure, private investment, government spending, and the net of export and imports. Our next topic is the Somnath Temple. The context of this topic is that the Prime Minister Narendra Modi has visited the Vantara, which is a animal rescue and rehabilitation center. Apart from that, he has offered prayers at Somnath Temple, and he will also chair a meeting of National Board of Wildlife, which is headed by the Prime Minister and which has been set up under the provisions of Wildlife Protection Act. And this meeting will be at Gir today. Why we are taking this Somnath Temple as one of the topic? Because in the prelims 2022, there was a question related to Somnath Temple. The location of temple is at Prabhas Patan, that is Veeraval in Gujarat, and it is the holy place of first Adi Jyotirling Sri Somnath Mahadev, and this is the holy soil from where Lord Shri Krishna took his last journey. Also, it is a place of a Triveni Sangam, like we are witnessing at Prayagraj, where Ganga, Yamuna and Saraswati meets. Here the Triveni Sangam have a confluence of three rivers, that is Kapil River, Hiran River as well as the Saraswati River. In 1024 CE, during the reign of Chalukya king Bhima I, this temple was attacked by Turkic ruler Mahmud of Ghazni. And a description of temple by Al-Baruni, who was an Arab traveler, was so glowing. He has glorified this temple with regard to the various infrastructure as well as the various assets it has. It prompted the visit by Mahmud of Ghazni in year 1024. And this Somnath temple is one of the 12 Jyotirling that is located in India. Also, this question that is related to the Somnath Temple, the context they have also mentioned that the Prime Minister recently inaugurated the new circuit house near Somnath Temple at Veeraval. Which of the following statements are correct regarding the Somnath Temple? This is one of the Jyotirling sign, that is correct. A description of Somnath Temple was given by Al-Baruni, that is also correct. A Pran Pratishtha of Somnath Temple, installation of present day temple, was done by President S. Radhakrishnan. This is incorrect. This was done by the Dr. Rajendra Prasad, who was the first president. Also, there was a controversy related to that, because at that point of time the President Rajendra Prasad wanted to go and take participation in the Pran Pratishtha ceremony of the Somnath Temple after the independence in year 1951. But the Prime Minister at that time, Dr. Jawaharlal Nehru, said that he has written a letter to the President that keeping in mind the secularism characteristic of the various offices which we are holding, that you should avoid going to in this Pran Pratishtha ceremony of the Somnath Temple. But Dr. Rajendra Prasad went, he took participation in that, and that is the reason this third statement is incorrect, and correct answer is 1 and 2 only. It was Dr. Rajendra Prasad, not Dr. Radhakrishnan. Apart from that, these are some of the other bodies which are headed by the Prime Minister. Try to keep an idea about this. Apart from that, I have mentioned some of the committees which are headed by the Prime Minister. Please tell me in the comment box which are the committees which are headed by the Prime Minister apart from the Appointment Committee, Economic Affairs Committee as well as the Political Affairs Committee. There are some other committees of the cabinet which are headed by the Prime Minister. Also tell me that who is the minister who is heading the Cabinet Committee on the Accommodation as well as the Cabinet Committee on the Parliamentary Affairs. All these answers you people give me in the comment box. Next topic is the dramatic performance repealed law. This is related to GS paper 2, government policies and intervention. This has appeared in today's The Indian Express, page number 11. So context is that the Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Saturday asked why a colonial law that allowed the arrest of people dancing in the public places had continued to exist even 75 years after independence. And this law was repealed in year 2019 when the government, in 2018 when the government was repealing various obsolete laws which were coming from the time immemorial before the colonial time. Also, this was in news because of the fact that Dramatic Performance Act 1876, it gave the power to the British government to prohibit the public dramatic performance which are scandalous, defamatory, seditious or obscene. That if there is a nukkad natak or play which group of people are performing, which are criticizing any of the colonial government policies, or they are motivating people to participate in the freedom struggle, the Britishers can come, they can revoke, or they can come with this particular law, with the help of which there are provisions of prescribed jail term up to 3 months or fine or both. And there was also the legality or the constitutionality of this particular act came in front of the Allahabad High Court in the year 1956 in the state versus Babulal and others, where it was ruled that law was inconsistent with the provisions of the constitution. And why did India persist with the law that are enacted by the colonial laws? As per Article 372 of the Constitution, it talks about the continuation in force or existing laws and their adaptation. It says that laws in force in the territory of India immediately before the commencement of this Constitution shall continue in force therein until altered or repealed or amended by the competent legislature or other competent authority. Either it has been repealed by the Supreme Court or it has been repealed by the Parliament itself. In that case, that particular law which came in force before the independence, that will be valid. But if it has been repealed by the competent authority, then it will no longer will be valid. And this was one of the law which was repealed with the effect from January 2018 as part of the current government's exercise to weed out the obsolete laws that have no relevance at this point of time. Then our next topic is avalanche. This is related to GS paper 1, important geophysical phenomena, and GS paper 3, disaster management, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 1. So there was a severe avalanche that came near Mana village, which is located in Uttarakhand, and it led to loss of life of several people who were involved in border road organizations works. Also, these bodies of last 4 workers which are trapped by the avalanche at this village were recovered, and this has ended the 60-hour multi-agency rescue operations at 10,500 feet above the sea level amid the heavy snowfall. So what exactly is this avalanche? This can be defined as mass of snow, rock, ice, soil and other materials sliding rapidly down from a mountainside. Let's suppose this is the mountainside when it is coming out or it is moving from the higher elevation to the lower elevation, that can and they are coming with snow, rock, ice, soil, that can be defined as avalanche. And majorly avalanche of rocks or soil are called as the landslides, while the snow slides are the common kind of avalanche. If these are rapid movement of the materials are coming with the soil as well as the rocks, that will be generally defined as landslides. And if they are coming with the snowflakes, then that will be generally categorized as the avalanche. And what is the mechanism with the help of which this avalanche is occurring? That unstable mass of snow, that is this mass of snow which was earlier associated with this big glacier or this big ice, and this has broken away from a slope and it picks up speed and more as it is moving downhills. As it is coming downhills, it is picking up more speed with the help of impact of the gravity. Also, it produces a river of snow and a cloud of icy particles that rises high into the air. Okay, and what are the main types of snow avalanches? One is the slough avalanche, which is a small side of dry powdery snow that occurs when the weak layer of snowpack is on the top. And then we have the slab avalanche, which is weak layer lies lower down in snowpack, and when it breaks off, it pulls up all the layers on the top of it down the slope. In the slough avalanche, generally we have the weak layer of snowpacks, whereas in the slab it is the complete layer which is coming outside with the whenever that is getting removed. Also, what are the factors which are impacting this avalanche? A fresh snowfall adds a new layer of snowpack. When the fresh snowfall is happening, it is increasing the pressure on the already sheet that was there, and it can lead lead to breaking up of that slab or sheet, and that can go downhill, and that can come in the form of avalanche. Also various other natural factors like pull of gravity, steep slope, earthquakes, or various other seismic activities. The temperature warming, that when the temperature is increasing, it weakens the bond between the layers of various snows, and that is the reason when the layers are weakening, one layer can come out of other layer. Also various other human activities like construction, development activities like building up of hydropower plants in these zones, that can also trigger some of the seismic activities and can lead to avalanche like conditions. That is all from today's analyst. Thank you very much. All the very best. Keep studying.